Okay, I don't have very much battery, so we'll see how far I get. Hello, and welcome to this video, which is actually the first video I have posted on this channel, specifically at the moment anyway, around the topic of kind of pregnancy and being pregnant, having had an eating disorder. So from the title of this video, you will see that that is kind of what this video is about. I have decided to split this up into different sections based on the kind of different trimesters of pregnancy, because I'm partway through my second trimester now, and I have already experienced different emotions compared to my first trimester. So I think there will be a lot to kind of discover. So if you are pregnant, or if this is a topic that interests you, then do feel free to subscribe and do all the little stuff so that you can get notified when my next video goes up and things like that. I'm kind of just gonna dive in, I think. So if you have come to this video through my Instagram, via my Instagram, then you will probably know a little bit about my sort of history with my eating disorder. I'm gonna briefly sort of explain my journey with an eating disorder. If you do want to like learn a little bit more or whatever, I'll link my Instagram below, because I have a highlight saved going into a bit more detail about my journey with anorexia. So very brief overview backstory. I suffered from anorexia for about 12 or 13 years, from the age of about 12 until the age of sort of 24, 25, and that was 3 years ago. During those years, I kind of had periods of time where I was very, very ill, and then other periods of time where I was functioning much more normally. I went through clinical recovery in 2019 and early 2020. Yeah, got discharged from the clinic in 2020. So 3 years ago, almost, coming on for 3 years ago, which is amazing. And my driving force throughout the whole of my recovery process was firstly my wedding. I got married at the end of 2020, and secondly, one day wanting to have a family, and really the desire to have a baby, the desire to have many babies, possibly, maybe, who knows what the universe has in store, but certainly to have my own family and raise my own family has always been a #1 priority of mine. So when I was going through recovery, that was such a driving force, you know, getting my periods back, entering that next chapter of my life. I'm proud of myself to say that I did do that. So kind of sitting here, being pregnant 3 years later, it's a whole ton of stuff. It's just amazing. It's everything that I could have ever dreamed of and more. So yeah, here I am, pregnant, 2023, could not be happier, completely recovered. However, when you've suffered from an eating disorder for a significant length of time, I mean, to be honest, any length of time, but particularly for me, the years in which I suffered from my eating disorder set the foundations really for my adulthood. So unlearning a lot of stuff is a really, really long process, and everyone's journey is going to be different. But for me personally, I definitely know that there are going to be situations in my life as I progress through my life that are probably going to trigger emotions that are sort of buried deep. My camera battery died and I don't have a spare battery, so I've been charging my camera for about 3 hours. So if the lighting is different or I look more tired, then that is why I started the video with such great intentions. Anyway, you can be recovered from an eating disorder, but there are always going to be times in your life that are going to maybe trigger some of your kind of eating disorder feelings or emotions that maybe need to be dealt with that haven't been dealt with because they've been hidden, and you know, all of that kind of thing. Anyway, I feel like pregnancy is definitely one of those times, definitely one of those experiences that is going to surface anything that's kind of unresolved, particularly with food and body image. Obviously, eating disorders are far more complex than just food and body issues. The symptoms of, you know, perhaps emotions that haven't been quite dealt with. But this video is specific to my first trimester and what I experienced in terms of any of those emotions resurfacing and things that I did to kind of help with that. So if you're somebody who is pregnant, having had an eating disorder, or even not a full-on eating disorder, even just a difficult relationship with food, or if you're intending to be pregnant in the future and an eating disorder is something that you're struggling with currently or have in the past, and you're just a little bit worried or unsure about what it might look like for you, hopefully this video will help. The first trimester, what I found really eye-opening was the minute that I found out that I was pregnant. Obviously, during pregnancy, there are certain foods that are deemed unsafe to eat. Something that came up for me was a massive distrust of food and how quickly that surfaced. So the minute that I found out I was pregnant, I switched my brain off in an extreme way. It was like instantly, my brain instantly went, food is evil. Just like that. And it was like, oh wow. And luckily, because I'm recovered, because I've become very self-aware through my recovery, because I can really see things that aren't right and, you know, triggers for myself. It was like, food is unsafe. And it was like, I immediately went to cutting out entire food groups. I wasn't just thinking, right, I can't have soft cheese. I was like, right, I'm not eating cheese. I'm not eating dairy. I'm not eating any dairy. I'm not gonna touch eggs, you know, and actually that's really extreme and really not necessary. A lot of that is, you know, wanting to protect the unborn baby. Of course, you want to do absolutely everything you can to make sure it's healthy and as safe as possible. But there's a limit, and there is such a thing as going to the extreme, and that's definitely where my mind went, and that is definitely because of the history I've had with my own relationship with food. And the biggest thing that it highlighted for me was how much of a distrust I have in food. But yeah, becoming aware of that, like, oh my gosh, I distrust food so much. Food isn't safe. That was the message I was getting through. And of course, in pregnancy, some foods aren't safe, but my mind just took it to the extreme. So yeah, that was the first thing. And what I did about that was I just became aware of it. That is the biggest thing, is just being aware. So I just became aware of the fact that suddenly food felt really unsafe. And actually, there are only a few foods that aren't safe in pregnancy. It's definitely something that, you know, you have to work through, particularly for me with such a deep distrust in food. Speaking to my midwife also really helped, because she was very much like, if your eggs have got a lion stamp on them, you can have them running. Speak to your own midwife, do your own research. Please don't take what I say as gospel. I'm not like a midwife or anything like that. But that is what my midwife said. It's not quite as black and white, certainly not as extreme as I was making it out. So my best advice would be talk to your midwife and be open and honest and say, you know, I'm struggling with the food thing. You can say that in the past you struggled with food issues. You don't have to. Obviously, that's entirely up to you. I would have thought that they will be very reassuring and very helpful and just help you navigate, you know, what you can and can't eat, because it's not easy to restrict anything when you've had an eating disorder or you've got an eating disorder. There are some things in pregnancy you're not going to be able to eat. So it could potentially trigger some of those feelings, because you are going to maybe have to check the odd packet, you know, the odd label of things, which can be quite triggering for some people. Yeah, having awareness and really tuning in to if you feel those emotions coming up, just sitting with yourself and going, okay, I'm aware of it. And if you're aware of it, you can then be in control of it rather than letting it control you. The other thing that I found very difficult in my first trimester was I had severe sickness, and there was a period of probably 2 weeks, which in that early pregnancy is really quite a long time, where I could barely get any food in my body. I don't weigh myself, but visibly I'd lost quite a lot of weight, which again, not only is that not great for early pregnancy, but it's also very, very triggering for me. Now, obviously, being pregnant means that you are thinking a lot more about the baby that's growing inside of you than you necessarily are yourself. So I was very much like, that weight needs to go back on. And almost saw it in a sort of clinical sense in a way, which honestly, I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if that mentality is the healthiest ever, but at the same time, I was hell-bent on the fact that I needed to put that weight back on. In terms of what helped me, not a lot, to be honest. The sickness was really, really bad and really, really debilitating, which was hard from a food intake point of view. It was also hard from a mental point of view because I couldn't get up and do all of the things that I could normally do. I couldn't cook meals. Cooking meals was one of the major things that helped me through my recovery. But at the end of the day, I think what got me through was knowing that I was carrying the baby that I've always wanted, that I've dreamed about my whole life. I think it was bigger than me. It was something that was bigger than me, and that for general eating disorder recovery was so important. And then obviously getting through that first trimester, losing a bit of weight and putting it back on and getting my head around all the food things, the biggest motivating factor was that I was carrying a baby, and that was more important than anything else. If you're dealing with any of the things that I've kind of mentioned, I think holding on to the fact that you're carrying life, you're carrying a baby, and that is so important. Again, I sound like a broken record, but awareness is key. So being aware of any eating disorder feelings that might be creeping back in, and just taking some time to be kind to yourself and as mindful as possible about it all. I hope that this video was helpful, whether you are currently pregnant, whether you hope to be pregnant in the future and eating disorders or body image or food issues is something you've struggled with. If you are somebody supporting someone through their pregnancy who has had an eating disorder in the past, wherever you fall on that spectrum, or if you're just genuinely interested, hope that you found this video helpful. I hope that you got something out of this video, that you enjoyed it. I will be uploading more videos, so feel free to subscribe so that you get the notifications. I love it. I love getting notifications. I think you click the bell thing, and I love it when people drop YouTube videos. I love watching them. I have like a set number of people that I watch every single one of those videos basically as soon as they upload them, and it's like a little treat. I don't know, I think because you're on, you know, Instagram like kind of all day every day, and it's so quick and everything's like, you know, stories and this and that, there's something about a YouTube video that I just love. I love sitting down with a YouTube video and watching it. So that's why I'm making these videos on YouTube. I feel like it's a better place for them than on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Any questions, comments, pop them below or pop me a message on Instagram. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye.